y'all, it's Nikki. Springtime in Texas means rodeo season, and starting on March 14th, Rodeo Austin will take over the Travis County Expo Center. Rodeo Austin is a not-for-profit that provides real experiences and gritty fun. We're talking a pro rodeo, one-of-a-kind concerts, a carnival, and a livestock show. Y'all, there is so much to do, and the best part? It raises millions of dollars for Texas kids. So come be a part of Real Texas Grit. Get your tickets today at rodeoaustin.com. That's rodeoaustin.com. See y'all there. Hey y'all, it's Nikki, and if you know me, you know I do not like being stressed at the airport. Springtime is busy at the Austin Bergstrom International Airport, and that's why the airport recommends getting there at least 2.5 hours before the departure time for domestic flights and at least 3 hours before the departure time for international flights if you're using general TSA screening. Oh, and FYI, you can get dropped off and picked up on the upper or lower level. You can find more tips and flying information at flyaustin.com. Today on CityCast Austin, South by Southwest brings in millions of dollars for the city. But in this music capital of the world, the burning question is, do our local musicians benefit from it at all? It's Thursday, March 13th. I'm Nikki Devon, and this is what Austin's talking about. Hello, I'm here today with Jay Summer of Tenderwolf and John Branch of Hard Proof the Avocados and his own band, two bomb-ass musicians in Austin, Texas. Hi, y'all.
Hey.
Hello.
Thanks for being here. I'm so excited.
Woo.
Excited to be here too, Nikki. Thank you.
So we're going to dive in. South by Southwest music, love it or hate it? What's your hot take? I need to know.
I mean, it's complicated. It's like that old Facebook status. It's complicated.
Fair.
It's not what it used to be, the festival itself. And I think a lot of people, I think that's pretty well known across the board, that it used to be a place that was much more accessible for musicians and for music lovers in general. And now it's something else entirely. But I do think that there's a lot of really cool stuff happening in unofficial South by, where people make their own parties, they make their own events. And so in that way, I love it.
John?
Well, I couldn't agree with Jay more, for sure. That's the same sentiment I have. I would definitely lean more towards hate than love currently. I'm not going to lie. I mean, playing the festival, I think I probably go back to, well, actually, maybe even 2000 or 2001. Just another midnight dream. Shut down, let them go. It was such a different festival at that time.
Oh, yeah.
And it was largely music-based, with a little bit of film kind of coming in, but it was all about Austin Music Awards from the Chronicle, and then the build-up and the anticipation getting to that music weekend, which started Wednesday night. Usually, I remember going to the music hall and wherever else they would do those award ceremonies. Started there and then kind of went full force all the way through Sunday, which was awesome. But then, in my experience, whatever development and tech money kind of came in and really started changing the scope of the festival, and it's largely over 20 years not benefited, certainly the music part of it. I was looking at an email last night that you get from South by about like, here are the people that are coming and this and that, and the music portion of like who they're trying to promote and who are coming here is just a joke in comparison to the other stuff. And all due respect, I mean, John Fogerty is great, but is not relevant. It's not relevant to current music. I mean, like, great, and there's other people, but there was very few that I would have even associated as being like something noteworthy. They're cool bands, but they're so, and it's definitely so. With all that, as people kind of get pushed out a little bit more, they're not involved in the official festival, like Jay was saying. The unofficial part of like kind of making your own thing is very cool. And there's stuff
Yeah.
all over the place. Like I haven't even considered the official part of South by for I don't know how long. It's just,
Yeah.
it's kind of irrelevant.
No, I mean, I'm right there with John on all things except I think John Fogerty deserves a chance, and I think he deserves his big break. So
That's right. He really needs it.
yeah.
He needs it. So, okay. So, John, you said you played South by in the past. What about you, Jay? Have you participated and played official South by stuff in the past?
No, I've never been an official South by artist. I think I've applied. I was in a band before this current band called Milquetoast Millie and the Scabby Knees. And we applied a couple of times. And I think at some point we were like, we're paying for the privilege to be told no. So, because you have to pay to apply.
Really?
And
Yeah.
how much is the fee?
I
sorry,
didn't look this year. Yeah.
but when you applied originally, or when y'all did
It
back
was
in the day,
somewhere between $50 and $100. Like, it's not
That's crazy.
insignificant.
and then if you get in, they pay you $150, the whole band.
yeah.
Wait, okay, whoa. I thought they changed it and each member gets 200. Or is it just the band gets 200?
I would say before, right up until COVID, pre-pandemic, like it was still $150, $200, $300 for the whole band.
Oh, so Eva Ruth just looked it up. It's only $400 for the band and $175 for solo/duo artists. Or the South by Southwest Artist Badge provides each performer with the same access as a music badge, and they're valued at $9.95 each.
Yeah.
But
that's not the same.
That's like playing for exposure. Like
or drink tickets.
Drink tickets.
It's definitely a pay to play situation.
What? This is crazy.
Yeah.
And so this was going into my third question. If we think that South by Southwest is good or bad for local musicians. And it sounds like it's a bunch of bullshit.
I think the corporation of South by Southwest is not relevant for local musicians for the most part. I'm sure there are some like who break out. I'm sure those folks are out there. I've never been in a band that cool. But I think that what's cool about South by is it does create this week where I think musicians generally understand if I'm going to try to play as many shows during that week as I can, that they're not official shows. So I think the unofficial side of South by is great for local music. For me, it feels like it's a time of like community. I'm playing a showcase that's unofficial. That's going to be a bunch of bands that either I've never played with before or a friend. It's that part of it I think is really special and really magical. And all of the day shows and things that happen that have nothing really to do with the corporate part of it. I think that part of it is amazing, but we could do that with or without the corporation having its festival during that week. Like, I think there is a world where that happens, whether South by Southwest.com exists anymore.
I totally agree with that. It brings the opportunity to do stuff that's not part of the festival, like you're saying. That's the benefit to Austin musicians. But for people trying to get discovered or this or that, like I think this is probably a music industry generalization overall. Like you have to do so much more prep and planning, even as a local musician, let alone somebody coming to town, in order to like reap any benefit from the festival. Even if you're doing unofficial stuff, like you still want to you'll get the experience of discovering stuff serendipitously. But if you plan a little bit like, hey, I contacted this band, I see you're going to be there, we're going to be on this showcase, like even if you don't know them, like you can kind of start making more connections that way ahead of time just to benefit the experience when you're here. I definitely went through the experience of trying to play with people that were hiring me, or I played with multiple bands that were here in town, and it was like, hey guys, we got to get paid something or whatever. Like I had years where I did up to 25 gigs in 8 days, and it's just, so it's like, if you're smart about it, you can make those connections. But if you're a local musician and you're really trying to hustle, and you can kind of make sure, hey, well, you're going to have to pay me this or that, or whatever little fee is, just kind of knowing your worth, that can be kind of beneficial. But I think I would say long-term growth, like as your career as a musician, that's pretty hard. There's not a lot of benefit to local musicians.
This is wild to me because the economic impact for all of South by, so, Education, film, interactive music, comedy is $377.3 million in 2024. And you're telling me with $377.3 million, you can't figure out a way to pay musicians? Like, this is the question I keep asking myself about this stuff.
We've only been a band for, I guess, 2 years, 3 years. So this will be our second year really doing South by Southwest. No, third year, I guess.
I don't forget that day. Lord knows I've tried. Lord knows I've tried.
And every time it's been free shows that we play and usually put on by folks that we know or that have heard us that want us to come and join their showcase. I'm really fortunate, and so is the rest of my band, that we all do not rely on this for our income. So we have the privilege of being able to just play things that sound fun and that fit into our schedules. I think if this were a situation where this was our bread and butter, I don't know. I think it'd be really hard to justify this being a use of my time and not going up to Dallas or Houston and trying to play a show that actually paid during this week.
This year, 182 of the 1,016 official showcase artists are Austinites. Only 182. What advice for local musicians do y'all have for this time of year?
I think it's just, like just the planning and kind of prep, like kind of mental preparation about like what is a realistic expectation if going into the week, based on whatever you're having to pay for, like application fee, like you're saying, Jay, or whatever it is, like budget all that out to like what you might be able to get out of like all the things that you're planning on doing there. But the reality of like getting discovered and, those kinds of things, I don't think anybody should be expecting that at all. Like, I mean, we all live here and it's like South by happens and it's like this whirlwind and you think like it's this huge force of things that happen. And then Monday rolls around afterwards. It's just like, oh, it all just kind of like disappeared and poof and like nothing. It's almost like nothing happened.
It's make believe.
Like it's literally like Wonderland, like what just happened? Like it was at a dream kind of thing. It was a great time or whatever it was, So I don't know if it's really worth it. Like for those stories I remember, a few years ago of people like paying thousands and thousands of dollars going through visa requirements to come here for South by Southwest only to get paid at that time. It was definitely that band got $150. So it's like, man, that's not worth it. That's not worth it because nothing is really going to happen, like realistically, I think for their career betterment. But if you're local, so you don't have travel, you have a place to stay, that thing, you can kind of like really maybe parlay some things, probably like what you do, Jay, like having some of those connections where you're doing unofficial showcases and connecting with bands maybe that you didn't know were in town or that were from Dallas or from Houston that might foster some kind of connection of doing more regional stuff. I think those are more realistic expectations for anybody that's a professional musician but not known or anything. Like you just make your living playing music and doing that. I think that's the better thing.
Just off the Texas coast sits a unique beach town marked with salty vibes and sun-soaked memories. Port Aransas is a place where family traditions unfold naturally, and beauty lies both in island views and the unhurried moments between adventures. It's a place where multiple generations can get together under one roof to share slow beachfront mornings and cool Gulf breeze evenings. An island escape with 18 miles of shoreline to cast your line, kayak with the kids, or simply cruise the coast in a golf cart. One visit, and you'll see why generations of Texans have anchored their traditions to the island life. Start your new favorite family tradition in Port Aransas, Texas. Go to visitportaransas.com and plan your visit to Austin's beach.
I have a personal success story of like where I went to a party maybe 5-6 years ago. I had recorded some of my own music. I'd done it all on my dime and this and that. I was, proud of it. I was like, this is cool. So I just went there, and there was definitely a bunch of local guys that I know, like see playing gigs and all this kind of stuff. And then I ended up meeting this one woman. The guy that introduced me is definitely a very well-known musician. It was actually Eric Burton from the Black Pumas. Like,
oh, shit. Okay. Yeah. Yes.
so I started talking to the woman he's talking to. She's like, oh, it's my party. Oh, okay. You probably work with like major people, but if I had a record that I owned or whatever, like, would you listen to it? She was like, oh, yeah, sure. You got to send me an email after South by. Just put in the tagline, this stuff, whatever. I'll remember. I was like, okay. So I sent her the record. And then like 5 days later, she hit me up and she's like, man, these are great. You own all these? I'm like, yeah. She's like, oh, well, here, I'll put you in touch. Like, and from like 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock on a Friday, right after South by, like they're back in New York. It's like, I got kind of a small publishing deal, and I
That's
ended
amazing.
up getting a couple placements out of it. But
that's from networking.
yeah, I had no expectation of like anything actually happening. And it was just dumb luck, honestly.
Yeah. Jay, I want to hear you. I want to hear your advice for local and out of town musicians.
Oh, gosh.
Do you think they should participate?
I think that if you have the resources to do it, it could be a really amazing experience for the reasons that John just kind of outlined. I think magical things can happen, but if you're coming to get discovered, I have no pulse on that because it's never been something that has felt like even a remote option for me. I think if you're coming to meet other bands, see a lot of music, probably do some weird things, like end up at like a house show at 2 a.m. in a weird part of town. Like, I think those things still do exist, but you do have to come willing and open to meet people, talk to people, and say yes to weird things. That's how I've always ended up at the cool, weird, funky stuff for South by. But if you're coming to get like signed or exposure from a record label or something like that, does that even exist anymore? I'm so out of touch with that aspect of music. I've been self-produced the entire time I've been a musician, and so I don't really know anything about that. So hang out in alleys, talk to people, say yes. That's my advice.
I love that.
On your own dime, just come and have a good time, but have zero expectations. That would be the general advice.
And it's going to be expensive, probably.
And it's going to be expensive, for sure.
I'm curious because I know you teach students. Do you ever talk to your kids about South by or like give them advice about doing the free gigs or anything like that or showcases?
Sometimes it doesn't come up a whole lot, but every now and then it will. They ask me my opinion on like what I think of this festival or that. Usually it's more ACL associated, not by Southwest, but that. So it comes up. Some students outside of this job, that I teach privately, they might ask, but I have very, 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 very few that are seeking to be kind of professional or like kind of go on to like be some kind of guitarist of or musician of whatever sort. It does happen, but very, very rarely.
That's so funny. I did voice lessons for a while to make extra money, and there was an alarming amount of people that took voice lessons from me that wanted to be the next Miley Cyrus or Taylor Swift. And, I was like, first of all, you're getting voice lessons from the wrong person, if that's what you're looking for. But like, secondly, do you know the odds, my love, of like, of becoming the next whoever, just try to strive for yourself. But I think it's interesting that musicians maybe don't have, I don't know. That's just a little interesting. Nobody wants to be, it's like everybody wants to be in the front. What's going on?
Yeah. All that just devolves into like a whole dissertation on the music industry in general.
I agree. And just like how incredibly saturated music is now. I mean,
oh my gosh.
You don't have to have representation of any kind to be on like Spotify or to put your music on YouTube or whatever, which I think in a lot of ways, I think net of that is good. and really positive. But it also just means, oh my goodness, if you're even during non-South by times, if you're trying to get a show in Austin, you're competing with thousands, millions. I don't know how many bands
Too
are in
many.
Austin. 2.5 billion. I don't know how many
Yeah.
bands there are, but it's a lot.
I think music industry execs, all those people are just looking for whoever's hot on TikTok, which I don't even have, but I know it just funnels from TikTok, and then things might start blowing up more on Spotify
Yeah.
and or YouTube. And so then that's when people of interest might be like, hey, you have built like a great following on your own. Why don't you give me some of your money, and then I can help you do I don't know what, but
Wow.
I'll be involved.
No,
And then
thank you.
maybe you could be Miley Cyrus or Taylor Swift or whatever it is, if you can sell this vodka for us, or something like that.
Oh,
Like, I
yeah.
mean,
Okay.
that's obviously very cynical, but but there's a lot of truth to that. And I think how that machine is working now, where South by is, like, they're just part of a cog in the wheel of that industry.
I'm curious, do either of you know, or have either of you, like, do you know what it takes to put on an unofficial showcase? Or is it just like, I'm putting on a show this day, and since it's not South by, I'm going to say it's unofficial?
Yeah. So I've thrown unofficial showcases for both the bands I've been in over the past like 7 or 8 years. So back with Milk Toast Millie and the Scabby Knees, it was South by Scabby Knees. And then last year I threw for Tinderwolf South by Sad Fest because
That's awesome.
our music tends to be sad. It really just, it's as simple as finding a venue that wants to work with you on it. And venues are typically, maybe this is just a tip for musicians in general, if you say you will plan everything, they're going to be a lot more willing if you'll get all the booking. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And so it used to be Hi-Hat that I would work with Steve Trader directly, the owner, and he was wonderful and would just give me total freedom and a budget, basically, and I could book whoever I wanted. And that was really fun. And we would get out-of-town artists and local artists, and it was really cool. Last year was South by Sad Fest, similar situation. And it really is, step 1, find a venue. Step 2, tell them you'll do all of it. Work. And you've got yourself an unofficial showcase.
Look at that. Easy peasy.
Yeah.
2 steps.
2-step process. I'm into it. Now, I want to know about y'all's, if you have any, like, favorite South by Southwest music memory. And it could be as a musician or a spectator.
I would definitely say the first time I went to South by Southwest was in 1996. And I came and I bought my ticket at Waterloo Records. It was $40, and that was the whole week. And I got to go everywhere. This is when 6th Street still actually had music all up and down the street. And it was, even then, it was still kind of in the decline, but it expanded a little bit more during South by Southwest. I ended up discovering the band Medeski, Martin and Wood.
Oh.
They were still 3 dudes, 3 really great musicians, like jazz, funky musicians in a van touring all the time. And I saw the Austin Music Hall, same festival, same night as that ballroom. Before that, I saw George Clinton, the P-Funk All-Stars. And then so this kind of speaks, though, to like what South by used to be. And I know it can't be this because it's 30 years ago and things have changed, but it definitely was an environment. Like, there were bands from all over. There were local bands, and there were definitely other bands coming there like, hey, I'm just trying to connect with, people that could help me out. And there was plenty of opportunity for people to play all over. And it wasn't that much money. I think probably for them to get there, it was worth their while to do that. Yeah. It was $40.
That's crazy.
And granted, it was, whatever, 5-6 days, but
still, that's crazy. What about you, Jay?
I mean, my earliest memory is when I was in college in Stillwater, Oklahoma in like 2005 and getting rejected by South by for my band in college.
Oh.
But I have ended up at some really incredible house shows actually during South by. I mean, you start by starting your morning going to see like P-Lander Z in a park pavilion that someone's just thrown together.
Yes.
And then you cut to 2 a.m. and you're at a house party seeing like the best folk that you've ever seen in your life and that kind of thing. So I've had just some incredible experiences. I recall also riding my bike to just see Lucius in an alley. And I was like, oh my goodness, And just that kind of stuff that maybe that still exists and maybe I'm just old and cynical now. But that felt like that's how South by used to feel, that you could see some of the best acts in the world that maybe were never going to be discovered or hadn't been discovered yet. But again, talk to people in alleys and say yes.
I mean, that's the best advice is just go hang out in alleys. I mean,
hang out in alleys.
Jay is on top of it for real. Like
that's it. Let's put this on a t-shirt right now. In 2010, I was fresh off of knee surgery and stir crazy. And P. Lander Z was playing at the Typewriter Museum. Do you remember that? It used to be behind the French Legation Museum. It was it was like a house behind a house or something like that. And I show up with my brace on. They're like, okay, you stay in the back. We're just gonna give a circle around you so nobody will bump your leg, but you got to see P. Lander Z. I'd never heard of them ever before. Someone randomly comes and hands me a pot and a spatula. And then I look up, and this tiny little man is on the roof of the house playing guitar, diving into the crowd. Everybody's trying to catch him. They're passing out pieces of raw meat. We're banging on pots and pans. And I'm just sitting there. And it's in the middle of the day on like a Thursday. And I'm like, where else does this exist? Like, where else does this exist? They see my brace and they go find me what is essentially one lone theater chair. Just one lone theater chair. They stick me in a place where I can see everything. And it was one of the best shows I've ever seen in my life. P. Lander Z is unhinged. And the perfect way to see it is essentially someone's backyard. It was just essentially a backyard that they turned into an unofficial South by Southwest music venue. And I don't think you're old, Jay. I think that just does not exist anymore. I think it doesn't exist.
That spirit is definitely gone. Yeah.
That spirit is gone. Do y'all have a South by Southwest music plan this year as a performer or a spectator?
I believe my wife and I were going to see the Northern Lights.
Oh, I am actually playing a show for an unofficial showcase with my band. And then beyond that, I took the week off work to just have my own little spring break. So I'll probably go to some day shows. There's some unofficial day parties happening that'll be really fun.
Oh, that's awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, I'll tell you what. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being honest about how you feel about South by. Because listen, I was hoping that we'd get into it. I was hoping that I'd hear some real musicians like, nah, this is bullshit. That's what I was hoping for, and you guys delivered. So I appreciate you being here and being honest.
We're your bullshit squad. Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
We got you. Thank you so much for having me. Thanks for having us.
That's all for today here on CityCast Austin. You can find links to all of our bands and social media in our show notes. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend, rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our Hey Austin newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye, y'all.